Hi there, Randy Green here, and welcome to a little Saturday update on the 7th of May 2022. And you can hear in my voice, I'm almost sounding joyous, and you will think, oh, what's the good thing? What's the good thing? And the good thing is, people, that I'm almost done with the sciences and with the classes that backs the sciences and explains the sciences. And what do I mean with that? When I got this crazy idea in 2007 that I could teach high awareness and how to get to high awareness, I did not know what I got myself into. But I had that crazy idea, and I've been studying high and low and all around the place to find the answers, just to realize that the keys I had in my hand did not fit any of the locks I found out there. So what do a wise woman do? She does as Steve Jobs recommended a long time ago. If you can't find it out there, create it yourself. So that I began with. And when you get a crazy idea, you always think, oh, that's going to be simple, right? That's the naivety of the beginner. And then you get into the complexity of things, and then you get completely bogged down. You think, oh, that is way too much. And that's where most kind of bails out and say, yeah, I'm good. I'll stay where I am. That's fine for me. I'll just do the base program. I got that one in check. We have forgotten the pain striking, getting into the body, which we're seeing many little infants struggling with, especially the ones that have been around a couple of times and have a little bit of high awareness left. They want to communicate when they're 3 weeks old. They want to do all sorts of stuff and they can't. Or 6 or 8 weeks old, that's where it kind of kicks in. And they are just struggling, this whole kind of looking at you telepathically. The higher levels say to you, what the fuck am I doing in this little corpse? Literally, I can't control it. So that's also part of it. And I've seen many infants in my life. And since I am telepathic, I do have that connection. And then I just tell them, yeah, that's a whole other level of work that you are getting yourself into, and some of the newcomers as well. And I'm still contemplating on whether or not I should take on that task for myself, but then I would have to be around mothers and their infants, and mothers are not particularly ready to hear, yeah, that little kid of yours is one of the future humans, and she is going to be a very advanced scientist, so you better get your shit together and study the advanced sciences because your kid is going to need it, and if not, she's going to be very discontent with you, and you will feel it, and she is a warrior, by the way, so you'll get energetically affected severely by what she's holding. You will be her punch bowl as she learns to deal with these energies in the world. So you better sharpen up, woman. You got an unusual child. And then the dad that is mostly kind of, no spirituality here, no other world here, no aliens here. And then you got that big trouble going on there. And then I will be the bad girl and the one that's kind of telling a lot of shit. And then the man will say to his female, you are not allowed to go to that meetings because that woman is putting crazy ideas into your head. So I kind of know how that one goes. Been there, done that, seen that before. You can hear I'm also drawing on an old memory here. Yeah, that's what got us hanged in the past and burned and lynched and raped and killed and all these kind of things. So today we're a little bit more cautious and doing it on YouTube. Where we can shut down the comment section so we won't get all of these trolls and the usual response from people that are trying to keep status quo. So that is one of the issues when we talk about teaching humanity into the higher order sciences. But the joyous part for me is here, and I will enjoy that moment today, because tomorrow will probably be gone, as it always is with good stuff in this world, right? It lasts for one day and then it just fizzles out and we go to sleep and we wake up and it's a completely another day of something else, like not like Groundhog Day. That would be nice, right? But it isn't. It's the wheels are turning and times are moving and loopings are happening and the aliens are coming and going and stuff is what it is. And our reality field is getting more and more depleted. So that's the end of that 9-year cycle where those of us who were on top of the game of the 7th dimension and up, we had our opportunity to integrate that knowledge and make it part of us, so we are sensitive to the reality field around us, and in that have the capacity to clear our holographic grid, which is connected to the planetary grid and the solar system grids and the galactic grids and the universal grids, which is part of our higher order energy system. So that is also part of it. And I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling this depletion that is happening in our world right now. It's every entity on this planet is fighting for energy, including bugs that are out there. It has begun to affect them as well. And we're seeing here in Denmark, we have drought. We had that last year, but this year it's worse than ever. The ground is so dry, and all of the things that are being, we can call it pollution from above if you like, you know what I'm referring to. Holds what we call some sort of, if we go with the idea, if we go with the old sayings, those of you who've been studying way back with me, there was this talk that it was part of aluminum, and that has been the idea in the whole kind of solar radiation management, that they would use these aluminum particles and dump it. But we also know there's a high level of methane gas in the upper atmosphere. We're knowing that because it's part of the greenhouse gases, even though it's mostly referred to as the CO2, right? But methane is also a huge problem, and we are happily farting along with the cows and all the other stuff that's happening. So that is also getting to a higher degree. And for the goodness of me, I don't understand why that's not being measured either, because that is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why, when it's not just a drought and when things are dry, but when it ignites, it explodes because of these chemicals and these gases that are now a huge part of our world as well. And that is why things are not just the wind as we know of it, but it's literally like you have put some kind of termite or something on the ground. It just ignites and then it goes completely whack. And that's because of that, in my opinion. As it's said, I have no scientific proof of it, but my best guess is at some point that will come, that we have not just only polluted to a degree where we can hardly breathe and we got asthma and all sorts of weird breathing symptoms ourselves, creating that environment that we can barely survive in. There are also going to be chemical reactions to what we have done that we have not yet completely understood the severity of. So we'll both have molecular and electrochemical and chemical and outer chemical and inner chemical issues with all of the substances that we have been using for the last 100 years or so. So similarly as we had it 100 years ago in the early ages, or more than 100, but in the early stages of the industrial age, where coal was being used and people could barely breathe in the cities and they died because of the thick coal smoke that were everywhere. Or even older times when people were just opening their window and throwing out their human remains, so to speak, after the days of families pooping and peeing onto the streets, and that created another type of disease. So we are in this constant, we're now just not with visible stuff. So this is the problem. This is all of the subparticle levels that we are to grow into understanding. That's part of some of the sciences of the future humans that are going to deal with that. How we're going to administer the human capacity in these ways. And I'm here referring to, of course, genetic modification, which is part of the CRISPR and all of the gene programs that are out there now, which are, of course, targeting what we know as diseases. And we have gone further into that program with the last 3 years and all of the new technology that has been shipped into reality, which under normal circumstances would have taken 20 years. It has now been implemented in 3 years. Yoo-hoo! There you go. Probably the main reason for what happened, aside from all of the other stuff that was going on. So, I talk about that in the perception logs. I'm not going to touch ground with it here because it's kind of a little bit, things are moving so quickly now. So it's historical. They have achieved what they wanted to with that. The big secret societies that want to change the world, right? They're still out there, but humans are trotting along in all of their happiness. So in going back to my teachings and educating people into higher awareness and what that really means, you hereby begin to understand, okay, high awareness also includes sciences. And those of you who go back with the esoteric material and you go further back, even if you go back into the original understanding of the Kabbalah and all of these deeply secret teaching systems, they were enormously scientific. There was this whole school around Pythagoras, as it's called in Greek, where he was teaching mathematics. These mathematics and the Platonic solids, Plato was doing that as well, where that's with his cave algae. That's what that is about, that general human population are in the cave and they're looking at the flames that comes from behind them as shadows on the wall, and they think that's reality, but they're not turning around and crawling up and doing the effort to get out of the cave and see the true light. And all of the archetypes, that's where that word comes from, that are in the sky, that are the basics of all creation. So that is where Plato got his ideas from and his sciences. He reached for their archetypes, the original Platonic solids, where the different shapes were mathematical features that were part of what we could call a higher order of reality, from where new sciences could be invented. And he tried to do that. And Pythagoras did the same with what we see as general mathematics, are now the foundation of most of the equations, and the ability to triangulate in space. And Newton used that science to figure out how planets were moving and coming up with the idea of gravity and all of these sciences that Einstein continued his work on. So this is what we're getting, people. Mysticism and mathematics and sciences, they go hand in hand, but that has neatly been woven out of the spiritual teachings that's been all about guides and angels and comfort zones, and you're a good person and you're a loving person and you're a compassionate person, so that people get more occupied in that direction, so they cannot change the world, because the ones that holds the keys are the ones that holds the algorithms to the hologram, right? That is the deep secret to go from mathematicals into code systems and holographic features. And those who are part of have been working with computers. Interestingly enough, I did my own little computer science course again when I was a very young girl, when I went to the Danish equivalent of college, where I learned COBOL and how to if, then, and code the computer, which were interesting. But it did something to my brain. And I'm seeing quite a lot of the youngsters for what we call the more transhuman agenda. They are literally face locked into their iPad, and there are different computer games that are altering the way that their brains are working. So we are all in that big time of change and transition for the newcomers, the machine worlds, the old bees, the newbies and the oldies, and you decide where you are. I definitely define myself as the old guard, and are, as we could say in a business analogy, you used to run business in a specific way, but markets have changed and now there are new players on the market. And either we rise up to the occasion and get our business back on and get into the next curve of innovation, or we are ghosts and dust and pieces of the past. So that is where any business usually either get a benevolent takeover or a hostile takeover. They will be bought by another company that sees, yeah, you have some good storage there. Yeah, we can't really use your workers. They are not up to speed with the new sciences. They are used to punch the clock with their hands and their little tools. But we are coming in with high-tech mind to machine connection, so you're not really up to speed with how this new technology works. So sorry guys, yeah, we'll buy the company, and they always say they always do right. No, nobody's getting fired. No, you can stay there. And then they change their entire business into something completely else, and people are just running, screaming themselves because they are undereducated and unfit, and they don't know how to lift the task, and they get completely frustrated. So yeah, business is not firing, but the culture and the environment changes so much, so people just run away screaming and find somewhere else just to figure out, yeah, I've been 30 years in this company. I'm kind of a little bit too old. Nobody wants me anymore. So that's how business goes, right? We know that for those of you who are familiar with business culture. And high-tech companies or low-tech companies did the same 100 years ago with industrialization, right? Where we had all the farmers that were doing things in one way, and suddenly we got all these farming machines, and then you didn't need 10 peasants to do whatever needed to be done. You had one machine, same thing, same story going there. So nothing is new. This is old business. It has been done many, many times on our planet, and we are in that transition as well. So as with all other levels of human history, and all of us that have been around experiencing that a couple of times or more, because the newcomers, they are just kind of, yeah, they know what they are here to do. We are in that, okay, either we upgrade and get on top of the sciences, or we will be history. So that is part of our challenge that we are here now. And when I began in 2007 with how to develop human awareness, I had not foreseen what I would develop it into, in spite of my childhood dreams and all the warnings I got and these kind of things, connecting the dots. Not easy when you are submerged into reality. You kind of need to pull yourself out to really connect the dots and see what's going on, because whatever's going on in our world is just the last phase of a very long line of otherworldly, other realmly, and other dimensional features and choices and groups of existences that are taking care of that. I'm deliberately saying existences because we both have the non-incarnates and the otherworldly and the interdimensional and the other dimensional and the extra dimensional and the meta-dimensional, whatever you want to put there, because it's a whole wide world out there. So nothing is done just overnight, and they do it in councils and agreements, and for them there's no time, so they got all the time in the world to do what they need to do. But from time to time they pop into our world and do what they need to do, and they need anchor points, and they need their spokespeople and what have you. I'm not going to go down that lane here. I'm just pointing out that now where I'm kind of just a little bit turning the other cheek, which you know what I mean, because I explained that in the High Awareness YouTube channel, as well as in the Whole Academy, in my take on Buddhism. I have got to that point where I kind of can say, well, what I had of information regarding the higher order sciences that were matching the last 9-year cycle of the holographic grids and our worlds are now done. Yoo-hoo! They are done. And they're there. So for those of you who did not get the waves of information yourself, you can now study it as text material and podcasts where I explain these things so you can learn it that way. And then we are now getting ready for the next 9-year wave, and that is the 2-8 pillar or the racial grids. And with that, most of you will for a certainty feel that. If you didn't feel from the 7th dimension and up, you will definitely begin to feel it now, because now it's getting closer to our realm of reality, which we are seeing. Of course, what's going on in our world is connected to the last 9-year cycle and the cleaning up of the holographic grids, which has now pushed our planet into its complete resetting. And it's trotting along where that one is going to take 50 years or so, as it did with the sun, and then we'll end up in density 1 completely, and there will be no other dimensional connection to our planet. And with that, there is this whole kind of, when a boat is sinking, even the rats are running, right? So that is where we are. And you have to laugh about it, because you can't go into the other side of that emotionality. That spectrum, you have to keep yourself balanced in one point. And that is, okay, what do I need to do? Roll up your sleeves and laugh a little bit about it. You know what's going on, but you don't get bogged down, because we can't allow ourselves to do that. We got plenty of work to do. And that goes with our own ability to jump onto the racial grid that is ours and then do what we need to do if it is depleted, to get ourselves disconnected and figure out how to live as a life form without being connected to a grid. Or if that's, we are in the more lucky end of things, get ourselves into the middle domain on the highest level as possible, so that we get preferably into the sixth dimension that has not been so heavily affected by both the timeline event as well as the regressed races that have been here. They have mainly focused on the fourth and the fifth. So that's part of the work that we are having ahead of us, those of us who just can't let it go, right? There are people out there that kind of, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep doing that? Why don't you just stand down, soldier? Stand down. I can't. I just have to keep going, right? So for those of you who have that in you, this is where we reach that difficult time and place in our inner journey that goes with a body that which we need to get control of now. And that's why I have gone into, when you do my whole academy website, you will see there is the whole living, where I talk about high vitality body and the highest level of energy in food and how to produce that. I'm also coming up with new levels of how can we actually exercise and then do the psychic energetic side of exercise and training. And what does that mean? Because it will connect to the racial grids, but that's not going to be easy either, because there our body will really get into the work of transforming energy. And if you're not prepared for that work, it will not go well. So there are implications with working with the planetary grids. Of course, they have been there since most of the regressed have left. There are plenty of grids out there that we can get ourselves connected to. But the question is, the residual energies that are connected to it, is this something we want to get in touch with? So these are some of the challenges for those of us who are doing the progression work and the activation work in the years to come. For those out on the internet that are just kind of, yeah, everything is good and fine, they're typically under faction. So I'm not here. We're not under faction. Those of you who are doing this work with me, we are in diaspora. We are on our own, and we are to jump timelines and jump racial grids and be nomads, energetically speaking, not necessarily physically speaking, but energetically speaking. We have no place to rest our head, as it's said in the Gospels. And that is part of some of the meanings that goes with that, the whole symbology of the two fishermen that are leaving their home, and prophet is never recognized in his own city, and all of these kind of things, walking from city to city. The character Jesus is always walking, and whether it's walking on water or walking in mountains or walking up mountains or walking down mountains, or walking across the countryside, or walking from one city to another, walking into the temple, walking out of the temple, walking in, going back to Jerusalem, leaving Jerusalem, going to Galilee, walking out of Galilee, going to Nazareth, going out of Nazareth. You see where I'm going, right? So that is part of that journey. And you have the Buddha that traveled from home and around the world to find the answers. And he traveled and he traveled and he traveled and he taught while he was traveling. You see how it goes. People that are doing this are typically on the run, energetically speaking. So that is caught in all of these ancient teaching systems that we understand that there is no, this is where we sit down and become what we are. We are energetically and should be energetically in flux all the time and administering the energies, being in that state of dynamics, because that's where life is. Life doesn't live where things get stagnated. Life exists where there is change and where there's challenges and where there's choices. So this is where we exist, and this is where we progress when we are doing that. The moment you get into your comfort zone, you go into regression. It is without any shred of doubt in this reality that goes from order and back into chaos. It doesn't go from order into progression. Here it goes from order and into chaos. So this is the more order you try to create, the more chaos that will come in the wake of their order energy. So that's part of the engineering that were done by the hijackers 15,000 years ago. So we are up against a lot of stuff. And my joyous part of that one is, those of you who go far back with me and used to have sessions with me, you had all of these questions. You asked me all of these questions. And instead of doing the progression work, we ended up in a question and answer session where I became the professor, all things that needs to be known. And you were the good student asking me all the questions. And then we would meet up 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, and you would have completely forgotten it, because that level of information takes time to be able to remember. Technically, it takes that you can see it for yourself. But until then, it's good to have classes that you can go back to and videos you can listen to over and over again while you build the density levels, the high structural levels of your brain, get the Mears sheath, the fatty tissue around the neurons to gather together specific networks where you process this information over and over again, because the brain needs to be trained to hold this information, as you need to train your body to hold energy and have stamina and be able to do what you need to do. So that's part of having done all of these classes, which have taken me many years, and I had to focus a bit on that and let go of talking with people, which kind of fell together with the last, since 2016, and the whole shift of our world and everything that happened there. And I'm not saying things have gone any better, because someone's over there is definitely undermining the foundation as well, which will get into financial consequences later on, and that will be seen as a very bad decision. It's already in the history book. So it's just kind of, yeah, the last president was Obama, and then that came, and then yeah, not really. So I'm not going to go into that one, because that's not it's not my place. But just saying, there are dynamics going on there. So stop looking out there for the answers, and things will get better, because we'll get a new president or a new prime minister or what have you. And the whole thing in Ireland, what is that about? That's historical, right? I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know. It's just kind of, whoa, what? Saint Finn on power? What the? Something is definitely getting ready. Yes. Something is getting ready. I don't know what it is, but you can see the pattern is there. It's just unraveling itself step by step, and all of these weirdities, things that nobody had ever thought possible, is suddenly becoming possible, right? Political powers that didn't used to be in power, medicine being introduced that would never been introduced, human alliances that would never have been seen, the whole kind of cutting off Russia, that was never in the history books either. So anyway, so just saying the world is whack, and therefore we shouldn't even give it more energy. Let whatever's happening out there, let it run its course. It's on a track. It's in a program. It is running its transition dynamics, and it's orchestrated. And I talk about that in the new reality updates. So it's on track. It's running. There's absolutely nothing to do about that. They have been this whole kind of possibility. It's now probable, and it's running, and it's gaining momentum, and it's a snowball that's just getting bigger and bigger, and it is running, and it will take all of the features of our world with it into that new type of society they want to create here. So that's the plan with that one. And that is both alien and human and what have you. And they've been plotting and planning for that one for a very long time. So just to put it that way, and the last piece of information, they knew once the old world order were gone and the top level of that one pulled out in 2020, they were ready, they were waiting to take over, and that's the plan, and that's what they're doing now. And that all has different groups that are here that are now getting ready to do what they need to do, and they will alter what is here to be altered, as I said, with the new business takeover, and change everything into what they want the world to become, so it suits their purpose, their races, and their function. So with that, enough said. So you kind of get the bigger picture here. So let us look into the next step. Okay, I got the sciences now. So if you do sessions with me, which is what I've been working on, the randygreen.one website, I've got that what I've been running now. I've got a lot of good sessions you can do with me, which we began years ago, and then I shut it down because I couldn't both do the classes and fighting off a lot of weird stuff and learning about the whole alien agenda and our world and everything that was going on, and at the same time taking care of my own inner working issues and clearing the timelines and what have you, and then also taking care of you. But since I've kind of just bouncing off balls now, just getting things, putting back on shelf, yeah, I got that one done. I am getting ready to focus on you guys and what you need to develop and what you need to look into. And I'm also beginning to think about how can I do some readings again to get some tools aside from the sessions and what I offer with that. So now I'm beginning to get, and that's why I'm happy, because yeah, Randy's happy for once, because there you have this. I got the reality check. I know what that's about. Kind of, yeah, it's not good, but I know what it is. So I know what it is, right? That's important for me. What makes me happy is when I know stuff. I like to know stuff. That's what makes me tick, right? When I know and understand and know what to do with it, then I'm happy. Know it, understanding it, integrating it, finding solutions for it. That's my thumbs up. So that's in place. The sciences, the higher order sciences are now in place. I'm covering all bases. So literally cover. There's not one question you can ask me now where I can't refer you to it. That's that class, or that's that class, or that's that you have to study. So that's good. So we can begin to focus on the sessions and the inner work and the progression work and the clearing work, where you will ask, what about that? I'll say, oh yeah, that's in the advanced clearing work classes. You do that one, you'll get the details there. So here you need to focus on that. But if you want to go with the full spectrum, these are the classes, right? So whatever conversation we'll be having, I don't have to go into this long explanation, including with these videos out on YouTube. I'll just say, that's that class, that's that class. If you want to know more, you go there, you do it on your own, because that's part of the progression work. That's part of the clearing work you need to study, because your brain needs to develop the higher structural layer so you can hold that information. And when you begin to clear yourself and get the inner sight, you will have frames of references from where you understand the information, because you need to understand to integrate it and activate the levels of your genetics, compositions and the components was the word I was looking for, that have been scattered. They are melted back, blended, merged, switched together, hitched, magnetically pulled together via life force and information. Information is used to create life force. You cannot create life force without the true knowledge of how to do so. It's not alchemical. I use this little rock and I use that little flame and then I create gold. No, this is inner sciences that goes with the original ways you use the reality field energies and your own physical energies and your biofield and your code systems and your energy system and your consciousness components. That is what you need to educate yourself in to be able to do. And the sciences, I've got them now. So that's what makes me happy. So, but science is not enough. Books, shelves and shelves and shelves of books or classes are not enough. You need to know how to read it and how to implement it. And oh yeah, it would be so easy if you go into the library, the true library, pull out a disk and put it into one of the pillars, get yourself connected consciously and just get a download. That would be right. Nice and neat, right? Or we could just do Movie the Matrix if you like that one instead. Plug it in. There you go. And then you got all the skills, right? Because you're envisioning it. And to some degree, we can do that. But you can't envision something you don't know what is. In the Randy Green or the whole advanced psychology, as I'm calling it, I've also made a Facebook page that will follow with that one. And I'm going to be a little bit less heavy in these here out on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And you'll probably say, what happened? Randy's suddenly just she's getting ready for Instagram. What the fuck? Right? Moving little. Oh, let's see here, I'm out in nature, right? Oh, that would be fun. That would be something if I could go to Instagram and then catch a craft that were visible, not some weird blob in the sky that were moving all the way because of atmospheric interference, but were actually close, so that it would be possible to see or stand arms in arm and do a selfie with one of the grays or something. That would be nice. That would be my preferred Insta, right? That would be good. So anyway, so that's just me joking around, but you see where things are going. So that is kind of, anyway, so if I'm suddenly on there and I'm getting all kind of fun and this is what's happening, it's because I'm just kind of got to that point in life. Yeah, the last 9 years have been so heavy. So I need to go a little bit to the other direction to balance it out a little bit and be less heavy so I can balance it in between high order science and complete nerdy stuff of the future. And then being a little bit more present in the now and just enjoy what's left of our world as we know of it before it transits into something completely else. Because I keep saying, Randy, would you want to be reborn into the future? And I say, no, at that point in time where I would have my window to be reborn, not a well I want to become part of. So no, thank you. I'm good. This is a vacation, not a heavy one with trekking and survival courses and jumping out of cliffs and falling out of planes. That kind of vacation, right? There are people that are kind of onto that, right? So that's that kind of vacation we're having here. At the same time, learning survival skills in the wilderness of all sorts of beasts. So yeah, that's full activation vacation that's going on here, right? But so that is what it is. That's how I see it. And in the meantime, of course, I'm doing what makes me feel good. And that is to do what I am good at doing, and that is creating the high order sciences, but at the same time also pushing you and working with you to the degree that is possible without me getting too inflicted. But I've learned what that is as well. When I began years ago, I thought that if I cleared it in me, then it would be cleared in you, just to discover that it didn't. So what I'm getting are imprints, and I got that one because now I work my way through the sciences. So I kind of say, oh yeah, that's the 6th level of imprinting that happens when you have a higher order activated energy system. You receive imprints, and of course you need to clear these imprints and the residuals of it, because if the imprint is there's kind of a pattern. If there's a pattern, it can be used for entry from other dimensions. So of course it needs to be cleared out. But with that, just kind of, okay, if I have some kind of piece in between the sessions, I might be able to clear that out. Let's see how it goes. It's definitely something I feel that's important to do, because the sciences cannot stand alone. They have to be put into practical use and exemplified. Otherwise, it will just be a higher order noise of knowledge that nobody's really utilizing in any way to form, similar to the planetary libraries that's just standing there, and nobody's really accessing them anymore, and they're just collecting dust, if that's possible, in the 6th dimension. So putting that into context and sharing that with you, because these are one of the rare moments where I actually have some good news to share, and pushing you again, because for a long time it's been all about reality field and what's going on out there as we're trying to figure that one out. And we were in between. Are we still having the world we know of, or is something else is going to happen, as in kind of struggling with the idea if your boyfriend or girlfriend is being unfaithful to you and you don't really know, you have all this weird suspicion, and you're running around, is he or is he not, is she or is she not, and you're having all of these fantasies about what he or she's doing, and you become a slight lunatic in your behavior, and instead of just talking it over nicely, you become weird and obsessed about it, right? So that's kind of, as I see, we have been the last 10 years. But now we kind of know, we can see it, everybody can see it now. It's in the general population. It's no longer, is there any climate change or not? Yes, there are climate changes. Whatever the cause is, there are climate changes. Is there going to be some kind of issue with the oil population? Yes, there is. But what they are, we don't know yet. The whole kind of, what about the resource allocation that's going to happen in the future due to climate changes? Is that going to be an issue? Yes, but we don't know how yet. So we are in the next phase where we now know, yes, our boyfriend did cheat on us. Well, what do you do about it then? Do you stick around with him, or do you kick him out and say you'll whatever, then go be with the others? You can't figure out to keep your dick in your pants, you're not going to be around me anymore. So with that, as there always is when things are going into some kind of weird direction, there's always underlying dynamics, as in, why did he cheat in the first place, right? And he can say, well, it was because you didn't fulfill me sexually, and just kind of, yeah, you didn't fulfill me emotionally, so therefore I didn't want to go and have sex with you. So you fuck off, you bugger. But anyways, just to use that as an analogy, you can hear I've experienced that as well, because that's what life is, right? As a woman, you sisters out there, you know what I'm talking about. But males have experienced as well, I know, but not to the same degree, because women are a little bit more emotionally attached to what they invest themselves in, where some males have a tendency to fly a little bit more around like the free butterfly, right? But that was not where I wanted to go. It was just an analogy to put it in some kind of understanding of, this is where we are now. We have made the difficult decision. We have come to terms with reality as it is. We are still mourning the loss. We are still struggling with adapting to the new reality and figure out who and what are we in this new reality with this new setting. Now that we have been abandoned by the old guys and the old girls and the old aliens and the old whatever. And we are now in that new modality of shifting into a new perception of self, a new perception of reality, and a new perception of everything that's going on. And this is not, this time it will not be enough to go out and dye your hair and get a new haircut or begin doing fitness training and get buffed and lean and all beautiful. This is part of it. If you like the haircut, but the lean and the buff part of your body, that's definitely, has to be done. You must be fit to be equipped to deal with the energies of the future, because they will come, they will be in a different kind of structure that will demand a more complex muscle structure as well. So that's part of it. You need to exercise to integrate more of these energies. So either way, so there is a lot of a makeover to be done as we get acquainted with the new world as it is, and with who and what we have become and what is left of us and what we can push forth, and the whole discussion of what will we then do with our lives. Now, we thought we were in one setting and suddenly we're in something else, again alluding to the whole, I thought I was going to be with that girl or that guy for the rest of my life, and then I just figure out that my whole marriage was a scam and everything was just one fat big illusion, because he or she had been with so many other people while we were married, and therefore everything I thought just turned out to be a complete fake and nothing to do with reality. And the emotions that people will have in that situation are technically similar to the emotions that many that are waking up are having here and now, and the whole transition from being one person and waking up and then suddenly turn into something else and figure out what that is, and rediscovering who and what we are as people in this new type of world, with this new type of knowledge, with this new type of energy work, with this, spirituality does no longer cut it, with this, what is compassion and what is energy work? What does it mean to be part of this world? What is the work that we need to do? If we're not spiritual warriors, then what are we? If we're not light workers, what are we? If we are not indigos, what are we? All of this were part of the stellar activation cycle that kind of went completely south. And they have not adjusted yet either, as far as I can see. It's still the same going. It's just being repeated in new ways from new people that catch up with information and then go out and teach it as if it's something new. That's how they keep it rolling. But those of us who've been in this for 20 and 30 years, we know, this is the same song that was sung 30 years ago. So what do we do about it? And that's the next step of the work that I'm going to go into, aside from everything that I am working on the randygreen.1 side, where I also will make some self-study that will go in with 10-step program for self-healing and 10-step program for inner work, where I'll begin to give all of the sciences and the knowledge I have with inner work and with self-healing. So you get that one as well. So when you do classes, you have the highest level sciences of reality field and who and what we are, and history and current time and everything, you name it. And then the sciences that we need in the 2-8 pillar activation and clearing work, getting that one in check. And then you can have the conversations with me where you study on your own, but at the same time can do the progression work with me if you choose to do so, where I can give feedback and talk you through some of the more difficult levels. That's why I call it advanced psychotherapy, because with my skills as a therapist, as well as clairvoyant, as a healer, and doing this work for so long and knowing what we're dealing with, and having had all of the encounters you can count on all of your fingers and toes and all of the levels of your reality, right? And all the beings you have been. So that's a lot of fingers and toes, if that's even the case. Do you have toes in the 7th dimension, right? Anyway, so just going out on a complete sidetrack there, but just so you kind of understand. So that's the capacity that I can offer. And you now know where I completely stand, what my highest level of understanding is, hence my take on Buddhism. I've been sharing in the perception logs my ancient history, so you kind of get it there. So you know everything there is to know about me. And if you choose to work with me, at least you know what you're getting, because I have now completely shared it there and how I see things. So when we do have a discussion, you're in some kind of, oh yeah, should I do this and that, whatever, you know the standpoint I have, and you know what the answer will be, but we can still take the discussion to figure out your way and what you can do with it and how you can change this if you want to change it, and what is suitable for your energy system and your configuration and your bioform as it is now. And these are some of the readings I'm getting ready to make that will also be on the randygreen.one website once I figure out, okay, what is actually necessary for you to have as a reading, and what can you work with and what can you implement. So that will not be template readings, because that's up in the sixth dimension and you're not there yet. So I'll focus more on the readings that will be workable in who and what you are now, not the three lower fields. I think that, or the two lower fields, the emotional field, the mental field, these are self-study and self-work, but definitely in the sessions we can talk about this and then work our way through there in what we call talk therapy. But when it comes to the holographic overlays and the programs, the contracts, that is probably where I will do the reading, because that's pieces of information you can't have access to yourself, but I can get it, and therefore you know, okay, I work under that program, so therefore the way I work with my emotional field should be in that direction. So these are some of the more practical issues that I'm beginning to work with now, and that's where I would invite all of you to do sessions with me. I've lowered the price a little bit again for the startup sessions, and then you have 1.5 hours with me, because that's typically what it takes. You just talk with me 45 minutes, it's not enough, because we need to dig into the root. When we're working together, there is this window of opportunity, and that's on that day. So we can't do it over several times. It's the beginning of the pattern. It must be begun and must be completed in that talk. And that's why I put it to 1.5 hours. And for those of you thinking, oh, that's a long time to talk, when you work with me, it will feel like 10 minutes, because I will pull you outside of time and outside of space, and you will not notice that time has passed by. You will see that and you think, what? Just, where did time go? Some of you, we're completely getting lost, and then we're looking at the clock and saying, what, 4 hours? So if that happens, I will not charge you extra, because for me, the most important thing is that when you talk to me and when you do sessions with me, we get to the bottom what we need to work with so we can push you further. But it demands, of course, clearing work and the investment from your side to do this and really be on, yes, I want to do this. This is who I am. This is what I want to do, not of curiosity, but because you feel it from within that that's the only way you can do from here on. That is your solution to what's happening there. That's you doing your completion cycles and get that one in check. So with my transparency in who and what I am and where I come from and why I'm here, so you know that completely, and with that you can either say, yeah, I can resonate with that and I can accept that, or you say, no, I can't deal with that, because I don't need a teacher that is going for the highest purity rates and the highest standards and the highest progression rate, which is what the humanoids did a long time ago, right? So it wouldn't be anything new. That would be completely understandable. And that will be a repeat of probably a choice you made a long time ago already. So either way, we are heading towards, in my opinion, interesting times. And for me, the difference is, last time when we entered into the 3-9 pillar, there was so much we didn't know. This time, we know so much more. At least I do. And I've made the classes for you to get up to that speed with that knowledge as well. So you get that knowledge too. Everything you need to know is now in my classes. And I mean everything. I've lifted all stones there were to lift, even whole planets, to get that information. So it's there. And for those of you who are doing this work, whether you choose my sciences or you choose someone else, get into the sciences, because that is the most important tool in what we are going to face in the future. We need to know the sciences of our physical world, and we need to know the sciences of the energetic levels of our world, and we need to know the sciences of the consciousness levels of our world, because that's who we are. So with that little pep talk and sharing here Saturday on May 7th, Until next time, take care, and I hope you will listen in from time to time, and looking forward to see you in my classes. And definitely, I'm getting all excited by having sessions with you people out there and see where we can push it. And it doesn't matter who we are and what our potentials are and how far we can push it. In my opinion, we should just all do our damn best, no matter if we're high or low or whatever we are, or we have huge portions of viable genetics or none. There's still a lot we can do, and every little single bit we do counts. Everything counts. This is our time. Let's make the most of it. Thank you.